over 50 years now, boys and girls and mums and dads have read and reread Kenneth Grahame's magical story of Mr. Toad and his friends Ratty, Mole and Badger. 4 animals who were sometimes so stupid and sometimes so wise that they were just like human beings. For those who've not yet had the pleasure of their company, and for the thousands who'd like to meet them again, this is the story of The Wind in the Willows. The great wooden doors that stretched high into the castle battlements were shut fast. The ancient fortress, grim and forbidding in the evening light, was locked and secure. And Toad, dizzy with the success of his daring escape from such a prison, was walking quickly towards the lights of the town. Not knowing in the least what he should do next, he was only certain of one thing, that he must remove himself as quickly as possible from a neighborhood where the lady he was forced to represent was so well known and so popular a character. As he walked along, considering, his attention was caught by a distant sound. The puffing and snorting of engines and the banging of shunted trucks. Ha-ha, he thought. This is a piece of luck, a railway station, the one thing I want most in the whole world at this moment. And what's more, I needn't go through the town to get to it, and I shan't have to support this humiliating character by repartees which, though thoroughly effective, do not assist one's sense of self-respect. He made his way to the station accordingly, consulted a timetable, and found that a train bound more or less in the direction of his home was due to start in half an hour. More luck, said the Toad, his spirits rising rapidly, and he went off to the booking office to buy a ticket. He gave the name of the station that he knew to be nearest to Toad Hall, and mechanically put his fingers in search of the necessary money in his waistcoat pocket. But here the cotton gown which had nobly stood by him so far intervened and frustrated his efforts. He just couldn't get through it. The other travellers waited with impatience. They had tickets to buy, trains to catch, luggage to collect, and aunts and uncles to say goodbye to. And here was this stupid old washerwoman holding them all up. At last, he got through the gown, and then, horror! Not only no money, but no pocket, not even a waistcoat. And then he remembered that he'd left both coat and waistcoat behind him in his cell, and with them his pocketbook, money, keys, watch, matches, pencil case, all that makes life worth living. In his misery, he made one desperate effort to carry the thing off. Becoming Mr. Toad once more, he said, "Oh, look here, I find I've left my purse behind. Oh, just give me that ticket, will you, and I'll send the money on tomorrow. I'm well known in these parts." The clerk stared at him for a moment and then laughingly said, "I should think you were pretty well known in these parts if you've tried this game on often. Now stand away from the window, please, madam. You're obstructing the other passengers." Baffled and full of despair, Toad wandered blindly down the platform with tears trickling down each side of his nose. It was hard, he thought, to be within sight of safety and almost of home, and to be balked by the want of a few wretched shillings, and by the mistrustfulness of paid officials. Very soon his escape would be discovered, he thought. He'd be caught, reviled, loaded with chains, dragged back again to prison, and bread and water and straw. His guards and penalties would be doubled, and oh, what sarcastic remarks the girl would make. What was to be done? Could he not squeeze under the seat of a carriage, he thought. He'd seen this done often by schoolboys who'd found a better use for their ticket money. And as he pondered, he found himself opposite the engine, which was being oiled, wiped, and generally caressed by its affectionate driver, a burly man with an oil can in one hand and a lump of cotton waste in the other. "Well, hello, mother," said the driver. "And what's your trouble? You don't look very cheerful." "Oh, sir," cried Toad, I am a poor and unhappy washerwoman, and I've lost all my money and can't pay for a ticket, and I must get home tonight somehow. The children will be hungry and upsetting and breaking things, and oh dear, oh dear.
Well, bless my soul, we can't have that, can we? Said the kindly engine driver. I'll tell you what. You're a washerwoman and I'm an engine driver, as you may well see. And there's no denying it's terribly dirty work. You wash me a few shirts and send them on when you get home, and though it's against regulations, I'll give you a ride on my engine. The toad's misery turned into rapture as he eagerly scrambled up into the cab of the engine. Of course, he'd never washed a shirt in his life and had no intention of beginning now, but he thought, when I get safely home and have money again, I'll make it up to the engine driver. The guard waved his flag. The engine driver whistled in cheerful response, and the train moved out of the station. As the speed increased, the toad could see on either side of him real fields and trees and hedges and cows and horses, all flying past him. And he thought how every minute was bringing him nearer to Toad Hall, and sympathetic friends, and a soft bed to sleep in, and good things to eat, and praise and admiration at the recital of his adventures and his surpassing cleverness. And then he began to skip up and down, and shout, and sing snatches of song, to the great astonishment of the engine driver, who'd come across washerwomen before, but never one at all like this. By the time it was dark, they'd covered many and many a mile, and the train raced through moonlit countryside. And then Toad noticed that the engine driver, with a puzzled expression on his face, was leaning over the side of the engine and listening hard. "That's very strange," he said to Toad. "We're the last train running in this direction tonight, and yet I swear there's another one following us." Toad ceased his frivolous antics at once. He sank slowly down onto the floor, grave and depressed, trying desperately not to think of the awful possibilities. "I can see it clearly now," the engine driver called out. "It is an engine on our rails and coming along at a great pace. And it's crowded with the queerest lot of people I ever did see." Indeed, it was a most amazing sight. A single engine pouring forth smoke and steam, and clinging to it all manner of men caught up in the chase. Ancient warders waving cudgels, policemen in their helmets waving truncheons, shabbily dressed men, unmistakably detectives in their pot hats, waving revolvers and walking sticks, and all of them shouting the same thing: "Stop! Stop! Stop!" The toad, now kneeling, raised his paws in supplication. "Save me! Oh, save me, dear, kind Mr. Engine Driver, and I will confess everything. I am not the simple washerwoman I seem to be. I have no children waiting for me. I am a toad, the well-known and popular Mr. Toad. I have just escaped, by great daring and cleverness, from a loathsome dungeon into which my enemies had flung me, and if I am recaptured, then chains, bread and water, and misery for me once more. Oh, unhappy and innocent Toad." The engine driver looked down on him very sternly and said, "Now then, tell the truth. What were you put in prison for?" "Oh, it was nothing very much," said poor Toad, colouring deeply. "I only borrowed a motor car while the owners were at lunch. They had no need of it at the time. But people, especially judges, take such harsh views of thoughtlessness and high-spirited actions." The engine driver looked grave and said, "I fear that you have indeed been a wicked toad, and by rights I ought to give you up. But you're obviously in trouble and distress, so I won't desert you. I don't hold with motor cars for one thing, and I don't hold for being ordered about by policemen when I'm on my own engine for another. And the sight of an animal in tears always makes me soft-hearted. So cheer up, Toad, we may beat 'em yet." They piled on more coals, shoveling furiously. The furnace roared, the sparks flew, and the engine leapt and swung. But still their pursuers slowly gained. "I'm afraid it's no good, Toad," said the engine driver as the train ran into a long tunnel. "There's just one thing left for us to do, and it's your only chance, so listen carefully. On the other side of the tunnel is a thick wood. Now, we're going flat out, but the others are bound to slow down a bit in the tunnel for fear of an accident. So when we're through, I'll shut off steam and brake as hard as I can, and you must leap for the safety of the woods. Then I'll go off again, and they can chase me if they like, for as long as they like. Now, be ready." They piled on more coals as the engine rushed and roared and rattled through the darkness, till at last they shot out at the other end into the moonlight and saw the wood lying dark and helpful on either side of the line. The driver shut off steam, slammed on the brakes, and when the train was almost at a walking pace, he called out, "Jump!" Toad rolled and twisted and bumped and fell all the way down the steep embankment. He collided with hillocks, knocked over bushes, and scared the local residents right out of their tiny wits. At last, he reached the bottom and dived into the wood. By this time, his train had disappeared into the night, but suddenly, out of the tunnel burst the pursuing engine, roaring and whistling, her motley crew waving their various weapons and shouting, "Stop! Stop!" And seeing this incredible sight, the Toad, for the first time since he was thrown into prison, laughed. He laughed and laughed and laughed, till the tears were streaming down his cheeks and his sides ached. And then he stopped laughing. In fact, not only did he stop, but he wondered why he'd even started laughing in the first place. For here he was in an unknown wood. It was very late and dark and cold, and he was without money, supper, or friends. He found the silent wood strange and unfriendly. An owl swooped noiselessly towards him, brushing his shoulder and making him jump. So he sought the shelter of a hollow tree, and, tired, hungry, and humiliated, made himself as comfortable as possible, and went to sleep.